So I was talking about a website where saxophone players go.
There's Sax on the Web. There's Sax Quest. Now they're just doing forums and Facebook. There's a whole bunch of saxophone forums on there.
So I'm looking around on this one, and a lot of times younger players will ask a question and hope that an older player will give them an answer.
Okay.
And I came across a question that was asked by what I assumed to be a young player, and an answer that was given to him, and I think this is hilarious. The youngster says, "Do any of you recommend a good saxophone mic?" And one of the people who answered him answered in the following way. "I'm assuming you're asking for live purposes. The SM57 is a good warhorse. It can take a beating and it's inexpensive. If choices are limited, I generally default to an SM57. My personal choice when dealing with sound people in the industry is a Sennheiser 421. Most good sound people will carry those with them. However, my preference for live, if playing with a mic on a stand, is a Sennheiser 441. I'd buy one for myself, but I use a clip-on mic for live work when I have to provide my own equipment. I carry an AKG D409 in my bag. I have an old Shure SM98 as a backup, which is a dynamic mic and does not require phantom power. I have previously owned a condenser counterpart, the C409, and have also played through the current C419. And for my money, the dynamic version of the AKG is superior to the condenser version, much fatter and warmer. The D409 is actually a little less expensive than the C419 too. Other clip-on options include the Audio-Technica. They have a variety of clip-on mics built off their 35 capsule. I've played on a number of them, and they've worked fine, but I wasn't necessarily impressed. I talked to Tom Scott a couple of weeks back. He's a former AKG user, and he swears by the AMT Roam system. It's wireless, but the mic capsule is rumored to be the best one out there. A number of sound engineer friends have been encouraging me to move in this direction for wireless. I hope this helps. Good luck."
That sounds really familiar.
This was written 14
What
years
is 14 years ago? That's 2006. Is this on Sax Quest?
Yes.
Because that's when I was on Sax Quest.
Do you know who this very helpful saxophone player who answered this very simple question, does anybody recommend a good saxophone mic? Do you have any idea who is the author of this answer? It's Mr. Paul Navidad.
I've always been helpful in those things, you know?
That is such a complete answer. It's like the whole catalog. It's
I love microphones. I've got two in front of me right now. I'm planning on buying a TLM 103.
the way that you rattle off the names of all these microphones and their qualities is just hilarious to me.
You have to have options. You have to understand what your options, because no one piece of gear is going to work for every single musician out there.
Does anyone have a recommendation? And this is recent, right?
Yeah, this is a couple about 4 weeks ago. It says.
Here's the Paul Navidad answer. Let's see how much he's changed in the last 14 years.
Well, this is recording mics. The other one's for live.
A decent entry-level mic at around $300 is the Audio-Technica AT4040. At just under $400, you can get into a Sennheiser MD421, which is a popular sax mic for live, but has been used in the studio for sax on occasion. It can also get the Barry to bark a bit if that's what you want. Personally, I'm more of a fan of the MD441. That's Bob Mintzer's go-to mic, but it's much more expensive, around $900. But in that price range, I'd rather go with a Royer R10. Also, in the same price range as the MD421 is the Electro Voice RE20. I'm personally not a fan of it for saxophone. I prefer it for brass, but a lot of other saxophonists like it in that price range. At just a little over $500 is the Rode NTK. I haven't recorded with it on saxophone, but generally, the mics I've liked for vocals have worked great for saxophone as well. If you're able to spend around $700, I would recommend the Neumann TLM 102. I'm personally a big fan of the TLM 103. It's my go-to mic for saxophone, but it runs a little closer to $1,100. In the same price range as the TLM 103 is the AEA R84, which is another of my favorites for saxophone. I hope that helps. You ended it the same way as you did 14 years
Okay,
earlier.
well, I try to be helpful. I mean, that's just me.
You are so knowledgeable about microphones.
I love microphones. What can I say? A lot of that comes about from David Edwards, the recording engineer. Dave and I have talked microphones for 30 years almost. He was the first recording engineer and one of only a few who are actually able to capture my sound on saxophone. And we've talked hours and hours about microphones.
I have a picture I want to share with you. I
Okay.
took this in the studio one time, and I wonder if you recognize any of these microphones.
The pill-shaped one that's hanging down from the top looks like an RCA 77, which is one of my favorites. That's a ribbon mic from the 30s. They're going in the neighborhood of about 23 to $2,600 now.
So I took that picture as a joke. in front of all those microphones because I thought it was really funny.
We were doing a recording session at Orange Coast College. They gave me a bunch of options. And I said, you've got unlimited tracks, right? Can you just track like a whole bunch of different feeds and test out all the mics and we'll pick the one we like the best?
You're kidding. Oh, that's a great
And
experiment.
in fact, so this picture I'm going to show you here is from that recording session. This is 4 years ago.
Oh, that's a great picture. And that's not the first time you and I have been pictured in front of a bunch of microphones.
No, it's not.
This is often used for our for the invites for our bowling parties. Can you identify any of this?